Regular. Oh, I'm hearing her. She's not muted now. There we go. Okay, welcome to the regular meeting of the Recreation and Parks Commission. Would everyone please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Monse, let's do roll call, please.
Sure. Commissioner Kelly Watson.
Present.
Commissioner Julie Stolnak.
Present.
Commissioner Dave Lutz.
Present.
Vice Chairperson Lee Davis.
Present.
Chairperson Bob Moda.
I'm here. Thank you. We have a few presentations tonight. We have the first one, Acacia Park update, and Christopher is going to be doing that one.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Well, we can hear you and a whole lot of echo.
Turn off one of your audios, Christopher.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do that.
Christopher, if it's helpful, you could stay on your audio and disconnect the other one, and I can share your presentations if that works better.
Okay, let me turn off this.
Christopher, are you there? I think you may have muted the one that we could hear you on.
Okay,
You sound okay there.
I'm okay here. Okay. So for some reason, I lost the microphone on my computer. So anyways.
Would you like me to share the Acacia Park presentation?
Would you please?
Absolutely.
Okay, good evening, Commission. As you know, Acacia Park has begun, and we've been watching it under construction now for a couple of months. Demolition started January 19th, actually. Next slide. Here's what it looked like before demolition, and it didn't include the pool and restroom, but you can see the shadow of the restroom there. Next slide. Here we have the demolition started. You can see most of the elements are out. Next slide, please. Here's where the pool and restroom were. And I'd like it to be noted that we did save the elephant head spout and several of the signs that were attached to the fence as well. Next slide. A little bit more of the demolition is going on. This started right at the end of January 19th. Next slide. And here we're starting construction. They're forming some of the sidewalks, and I've got some of the base in for the walkways. Next slide, please. The play equipment arrived right at the end of February, beginning of March. Here you can see a playhouse. You can see it's very colorful as well. You can see one of the light standards, walkways, and some of the landscaping that's been going in. Next slide. Here's a close-up of that playhouse. Next slide. The structure for the swing set. I believe they were pouring the footings for this today, actually, when I was out there. Next slide. And here's a shot with some of the landscape again. Again, the light standard and the navy blue element there is a drinking fountain. And yes, we do have acacia trees at Acacia Park. And that's one right in front of the picture there. Kind of has a silver gray foliage. And we've got several of those throughout the park. And that takes us up to date. They're still working on the play equipment, assembling it. And we're looking forward to, we're probably looking at another 3 to 4 weeks before it's finalized. But we haven't had many rain delays at all, and it's coming along very nicely. I'll take any questions.
Christopher, I had a question. Are there going to be any buffers of trees or shrubbery that's going to be going along the, say the walls on the east, west, and the north walls to kind of buffer from the houses that are there?
Yes, we've got landscaping on all sides. The one on the west is going to require some another type project to kind of complete that. There's with the neighbors there's several different types of fences. We're hoping to include a project that wrapped it all into one type of fence. That didn't quite come together, but there is a fair amount of landscaping and buffer.
Okay. It's funny, you know, you still see conversations on Facebook that people that have no idea what's going on with the park. And they're like, what do you mean they're removing the pool? I mean, it's like, I don't know where people have been, because it has been so well, you know, talked about and publicized, and the workshops and all of that. And for people to still not know what's going on has been rather strange, I think. So, you know, and then there was the group of old timers that went out there that were the original Acacia Park guys. And they had a great time getting together with one another and taking their pictures at the pool. And then I'm sure everybody saw the photographs in the El Segundo Herald of those guys were at the pool. So I had a great time that coming together. And then I'm glad that the items were saved from there. The elephant head, which was a popular thing, and then a couple of signs that are there. Also, and I've been in communication with Elias on what's going to happen with those items, because there are people that are interested in them. So, you know, we'll see about that at a later time, unless if the city's going using it at maybe Hilltop Pool or something like that.
Okay.
Right. When I've been out there, there's several residents walking and so forth, and everybody peeks in, and they're all in awe of what's happening there. So it's very much anticipated to have this complete. It's gonna be a very popular park, that's for sure.
And anybody else for Christopher, or anyone else? Seeing none. Thank you, Christopher. Did Elias, did you want to say anything about the elephant head or anything like that, or did Julie get her answers that she was looking for?
Yeah, I've been in touch with her, and
Okay.
as we go forward, you know, we will see if there is any need that we would have for these items that we have collected. If the city doesn't have any need, I just want to publicly say that we have a policy by which anything that belongs to public would be offered to public. So we have to follow that same policy. So,
Okay. Thank you.
sure.
And we'll go to the number 2 presentation, Teen Advisory Committee, and Aracia will be doing that one.
Good evening, everyone. This is Rachel Cummings. I'm a Recreation Supervisor at the City of El Segundo. I'll be taking this one for tonight. I do not have a visual presentation, so but I do have some information to give you about the recently formed Teen Advisory Committee. The Teen Advisory Committee is a project that Recreation staff started with the goal of creating a group who can effectively communicate the needs of teens in the community. And help us grow our programming, and then also help us keep our teen programs relevant within the ever-changing age demographic of teens. We believe that the pandemic has been particularly difficult for this age group. So with the development of this committee, we hope to continue to provide recreation outlets for this age group moving forward. The deadline to apply for the Teen Advisory Committee was on February 1st, and as of the deadline, we received 26 applicants from teens grades 7 through 12 who either attend ESUSD or live in El Segundo. Each applicant submitted their application along with a completed questionnaire, 2 letters of reference, and then they were invited to partake in an interview with recreation staff. We now have 25 teens on the committee for its first ever year. And we had our first meeting via Zoom on March 1st, and we will continue to meet monthly. Hopefully we'll be able to meet in person soon, since they've already let us know that would be very important to them. The 25 members will serve through the end of 2021, and we will then open a reapplication process or an application process for any new interested people toward the end of the year, toward the end of their term. Their first goals are to create a mission, vision, and values for the Teen Advisory Committee. And then their expectations, in addition to attending monthly meetings, is to create and execute, with our help, 3 unique teen-oriented programs or events during their term. Personally, I am already very impressed with the group that we have. And from our first meeting, they're very engaged and willing to participate. So I'm sure you'll be hearing a lot about future activities in the near future. Thank you for your time, and I'm open to any questions.
Anyone, any questions?
Yeah, is there a
Go ahead,
list
Kelly.
is there a list of the members of the Teen Advisory Council, or are they up on the website or anything?
We don't have it published anywhere, but we do have a list internally. So if you're interested in knowing, I'd be happy to let you know, or I don't know if we can publish those names, but yeah.
I'm curious mostly about the diversity in terms of gender and demographics of the council, and was that an important part of the selection process?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I will say that we have grades 7 through 11. This time around, we have multiple 7th graders, which is great, and even some 11th graders, anything in between. I don't know the statistics of male and female, but it was mixed group. And then we have one child who is homeschooled, which I thought was interesting. And then we actually have a couple members who don't go to ESUSD but live in El Segundo. So yeah, I mean, for the 25, I was pretty happy with the diversity of it. It's definitely a different group of teens than I would say typically attend the teen center. And I think that was our goal, was to mix it up and diversify that, that group a little bit.
Great, thank you. I that's exactly where I was going. Was it, all the same age and they're all skateboarders, or was it a nice, mix of interests? So
definitely a mix, a different crowd than typical.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, seeing no other aquatic highlights for 2019-2020, including operations and financials. Aracia, did I get this one right?
Yes.
Okay. Melissa did tell me it was Rachel on the other one. I messed up, so.
No, that's okay. We didn't know, so perfectly fine. So good evening, commissioners. Thank you for having me this evening, or listening to me this evening. I'm going to ask Monse to share her screen. She will go ahead and switch slides as I go through this. My camera on this end can be kind of blinky and it distracts me. So while I do this, I'm going to disappear from you guys. so you won't see my face, but hear my voice. So Melissa and I got together along with Linnea. We did a lot of research with the Aquatic Center over the last 2 years. All of you know that the El Segundo Aquatic Center is fairly new. It's not, hasn't been around for a long time. So we're trying to capture as many numbers as we can. There are still some refining of these numbers that I will have to do, but they are very close. So I want to share some highlights with you with the Aquatic Center, along with some of our challenges and things that happened over this year with COVID. So Monse, is it on my end that it's small, or is that me, or can we get it bigger or no?
That's the entire screen on my screen.
Okay, it's just me then. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. So slide 1, please. So a little bit of background about the Aquatic Center. The facility opened in 2019. The facility is owned by Wiseburn, but the unique relationship that we have with Wiseburn, the city actually operates and manages the facility. So over that management, we have an aquatic supervisor and an aquatic coordinator, which is really great. And definitely some senior guards, senior lifeguards, and swim instructors. The facility is used by El Segundo High School, Wiseburn, City of El Segundo aquatic teams and groups, residents from El Segundo, as well as the surrounding communities and other communities as well. There are people that drive pretty far distances to use the facility, so we appreciate that as well. There is a joint use agreement between Wiseburn and El Segundo, which stipulates with the high schools how much time they can use and different other details that are very detailed within that joint use agreement. Next slide. So just to go over, I'm not going to regurgitate these numbers to you. I want to give you some time to kind of look at the slide and be able to review these numbers, but I do want to highlight certain areas. Looking at the lap swim, as you can see, between 2019, we were at a little over 10,000 as far as lap swimmers. And during 2020, we actually grew in a huge way during the 2020 year. And that was because there were some changes with the scheduling due to COVID, but we had a lot of opportunity for lap swimmers to reserve time. We had more time for lap swim, and it was the only facility for so long in the area that was actually open for swimmers to come and participate in swimming. So we actually benefited from that. As you can see, there was a huge increase of lap swimmers during that period of time. I also want to go down and focus on the other programming where you saw some decreases with public drop-in programming, family swim, and water aerobics. As you can see, the numbers did fall a little flat there, and there were a lot of reasons for that. We had very little availability for these programs due to COVID restrictions. We really couldn't offer these programs during that time, during 2020. And also we had stop and start. So at one point we could start the program with family swim and water aerobics, and then something else would come down from the county. Then we would have to stop the program, and then we were able to start the program. So with attendance, the ebb and flow of attendance started to get affected over time. As you can see, the permit groups didn't drop off that much. They had a small decrease, and that could be for a number of reasons. Maybe there wasn't enough space. Maybe the time of the program wasn't suitable for some families, and maybe some families just didn't want to return because they didn't feel comfortable with COVID restrictions still being in place. So there could have been various reasons for that. So as you can see, we still did fairly well. I would like to say that we only had a 2.3 decrease in attendance. So with COVID and everything that impacted us along the way, we kept on plugging through, and we had just a slight decrease. So I'm very proud of that. Next slide, please. And these are some of our wonderful, wonderful partnerships. We're very thankful for these groups. We've worked with them, and we've really had a growing relationship between these swim teams and groups with the city. So as you can see, we have Alpha, Beach Cities, South Bay, Trojan Water Polo, Tower 26, Coastal Masters Water Polo, which is an adult group, Southern California Aquatics, which is we call SCAC. We like to know them as SCAC. The revenue that they brought in the 2019 year was 65.7% of the total revenue for the Aquatic Center. And during this year, 2020, they were actually 67.9%. And I'm assuming that's because we had a slight decrease in other areas with programming. So they never really stopped coming. They still worked with us through the process. They still handed in their COVID protocol that they were going to follow while they were at the pool. So we still had them visiting our center on a regular basis, where other groups or other participants or residents weren't able to during that time. Next slide, please. And these are some of our other great programs that we offer. We offer swim classes in water aerobics, which is a very, very popular class. We have lap swim. Very proud of our junior guard and lifeguard training. We had 86 new lifeguard certifications and 43 new recertifications. And I'd like to just also say about the lifeguard training program, when I first started working here, we did not have staff on staff at the time to train other people or interested people to be lifeguards. So I'm very proud of the staff and the growth of their education during this time with becoming lifeguard training, lifeguard instructors, so they can train staff and train other individuals that want to become lifeguards. That saves us money. That means that we don't have to send lifeguards or people to other cities to take classes to become lifeguards in our city. So I think that's great. Special events, we have dive-in movies, the underwater egg hunt, the pumpkin palooza, which is very popular, where you pick your pumpkin right out of the pool, the holiday hustle, and last year we had competitions and tournament events. We had 37 in all in 2019, and they're actually starting to ramp up again in the 2020 year already, now that we're able to do a little bit more. So we're thankful for that as well. Next slide. Okay, so some of our challenges this year with overall challenges with the Aquatic Center. So, of course, everyone knows we were impacted by the pandemic. The Aquatic Center closed March through June 2020 of this year, as well as the plunge closed in March, and it is still closed as of this day. Our approximate Aquatic Center revenue loss during that time we were closed ranged between $125,000 to $155,000. The Aquatic Center opened July 1st, but it was still for restricted use. So we really couldn't do all of our programming. And during that time, since a lot of our youth groups could only do very limited work in the pool, we only charged them 50% of their regular cost. So we were impacted there as well. We couldn't host classes, we couldn't host events, competitions, or camps, which are also huge losses. We also this year had a high lifeguard turnover, and we had a frozen full-time coordinator position for a while, which has since not frozen anymore. We actually were able to fill it, but for the better part of this COVID year, that position was frozen. We also had additional turnover. We lost 2 aquatic supervisors over this 2-year span. We lost our recreation and parks director and a public works director. both of who were very, very familiar with this project from the beginning. And so there was a lot of institutional knowledge that went out the door with him as well. Contracts take up most of the prime time, which is a good problem to have and a bad problem to have. We have people using the pool. The pool is very full, but it makes it difficult to implement new programs or expand evening programs during that prime time. So we only have those groups using the pool. Next slide. So just to focus a little bit on the impact, giving you a little time to review this slide, and notice that, of course, in 2020, we had some drop off with our passes, our aquatic programs, and our permit group as far as the revenue. But I want to pay attention to the percentages and the decrease, because they weren't, even though they were losses, they weren't huge losses. We stayed in the 20 to 28 percentile as far as a decrease. So glad to see they weren't 50 or 60%, but usually on the lower end. And this was, there's really no other way to say it, but COVID did impact us in this way. We weren't able to offer a lot of programs as before. And some people just decided, I'm not going to buy a pass or a membership during this time until we can swim freely. So we basically suffered for that during this time, but not too bad. I still like to look on the upside of things during this time. Next slide. So looking at the expenditures that we have here with the recreation salaries in our public works department, we've seen an increase with the recreation salaries, and I just want to explain that for a second. During the initial part of programming for the aquatic center, there were times when we would hear that you could have 2 or 3 lifeguards on deck. And if you've ever been to the aquatic center, you can see that it's a very large facility. During this time, Linnea and aquatic staff took the opportunity to actually staff the aquatic center correctly. There should be at least 5 lifeguards on deck. We also had to make sure that we were able to wipe down and clean in between each use. So we had to have extra staff on board during this time of COVID. So that is where some of the increase came from. So we did have a little bit of an increase with salaries. The public works salary that's broken out here, in 2019, there was a dedicated position to the aquatic center, and that person left. So if you look over to 2020, you'll see that the salary dropped significantly. It was because they hired someone new in at step A. So you'll see a big change in that salary. We went from a senior to someone new in 2020. So that's where the decrease came from. The rest of the public works maintenance and operations, we had a decrease there as well. Not as many chemicals or services were needed during this time as they are during a regular year at the aquatic center. So we did have some drop off with their operations and their salaries as needed. So all in all, we had a 0.38% decrease from 2019 to 2020. So if you look down at the bottom at the net revenue deficit, you can see that we're about $100,000 over, or up from 2019 to 2020. I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on. I'm looking very closely. So not too, even though it went up, it wasn't too bad. A lot of that came from staffing and still continuing to do these operations, but we did lose some money during the the period with our programs, and so we ended up in a slight deficit, which was a little higher than the 2019 year. Next slide. So this slide shows you a little bit of the projected profit and loss summary that we had from the consultant in 2018. This was before programming actually went in. The facility and programs were expected to do a little over $800,000, and the following year over $1 million. So they were expecting a net increase of about $150,000. No one could have anticipated what would happen during this COVID year. So these numbers really aren't reflective of what took place with the pandemic. We are still looking at programming. The programming that we anticipated would be at the Aquatic Center really is not the same as the consultant had planned or anticipated for us to have at the Aquatic Center. So moving forward, and we'll touch on this on the last slide, we might want to consider some other options with programming and projected revenue and expenditure for the future. But we were actually, we were under with salaries and all of the maintenance costs. As you can see, the expectation for 2019 and 2020 were over $1 million, and we were actually under that. So we did not spend as many in those areas as much in those areas as we thought we would. So he also, the consultant also had a deficit for the first year of about 194,000. But Monse, can you go back to the slide of our actual? No, you were there. So yeah, right there. As you can see, in 2019, it was 234,000. So we weren't really off for that 2019 year. I really think we would have been more in line for 2020, actually, with the following year, had we not have been so impacted by this COVID and what happened there with closures and change of programming. Okay, you can go forward again. Thanks, Monse. So next slide. So some of the recommendations for the Aquatic Center moving forward, we looked over the last 2 years of what has taken place with programming, what has taken place with different groups and fees, and we came up with a list of what some great recommendations may be moving forward. And the first one is to revise the revenue projections so they're more suitable for the activity that is now taking place at the Aquatic Center. The next one is review fee structures and recommend changes to council. Maybe we look at drop-in fees and what we're charging now and go back to the table and really look at the comparisons of the cities around us and make sure we're in line with what we're charging, and maybe there's some other options out there. Expand programming at the Aquatic Center and the plunge. So when the plunge is back online, maybe we do some more new and innovative programming to hopefully bring in more revenue. Increase opportunities for sponsorships and grants. I don't think that's something that's been visited very well over the last 2 years, and I think that's something we could pursue and have some positive returns from that. Utilize job fairs. This is something that came up in the past, but we haven't, I don't think recreation has had the time to slow down and actually do this, but I think this is a great idea for young students and people who are interested to get interested in being lifeguards, so we can attract them to our city and show them what's available here at El Segundo to work with the Aquatic Center. Also implement, we are hoping to implement something like this or these recommendations for the fiscal year 2021, 22, but that depends on what LA County decides to do with their restrictions and if they're lifted. We also would like to recommend that the reports are done by fiscal year and not calendar year. Pulling these numbers were very difficult. It was very difficult to pull these numbers because finance really looks at fiscal year, and out of Civic Rec, our own recreation program, we're looking at calendar year. So I think we should definitely get in line with finance and be able to pull these numbers in a better way in the future. Next slide. Oh, questions and feedback.
I can't see everybody. So I'm going to say, if you have a question, please go ahead and do it. I cannot see Dave. There we go. Maybe. Lee?
Yes, sir. Just a quick question. How many months was the aquatic center closed during the beginning of COVID? I want to say it was almost 4 months. Is that about right?
About that. I think we closed in March and opened in June. So 3 months. About 3 months.
So, yeah, so that's the question, but the statement's going to come in is that if you went into those finance meetings 5 years ago for this center, the pie in the sky dream was to break even. We had been running the plunge at about a $500,000 to $600,000 a year deficit. We have the 2020 numbers at minus $95,000. I hate to sound excited about that because I know that's money that we could use other places and money can hurt the pie. It's 3, if not 4 or 5 times less loss in aquatics than we have suffered in the years past. And we're offering a lot more service than any other community in Southern California. Well, I won't go Southern California because Orange County is pretty wide open, but in LA County for sure. I'm ecstatic with the staff. I'm ecstatic with the numbers. And I know that you kept on saying, oh, it's a 95, you're almost apologizing that we're $95,000 negative, which is 5 times greater, benefit. And how many more people we're serving? You're going to get me to almost start crying here because it's, build it and they will come, and we have built it and they are showing up. And I just want to commend staff and do not apologize for that $95,000 deficit, please. For the number of years I've been looking at this, and I look at this screen and there's only a couple places that have seen me around as long as I've seen them. And being in aquatics, this is, I'm not going to go on. I can't, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else for Aricia? Go ahead, Kelly.
I just want to make an observation that based on everything you were saying, it doesn't look like you have a demand problem. It looks like you have a supply problem. So I guess I'm wondering why you would reconsider the fees when I don't know that our fees are too high. I just, again, I think you've got the demand you need. If we can open the facility, you're going to get the users. So why do we need to change fees?
And if I could piggyback on that, it's I'd be interested to hear what your ideas are. If it's something new, creative, that's going to work. But I think everyone is if they're happy and we can go with it, that's great. And I know that we've offered not to go back to the numbers, but you offered a 50% discount to the groups because they couldn't put 5, 6, 7 people in a lane. They had to go down to 1, if not 4, sometimes 2. And it was very difficult for them to continue to try to break even and run their programs the way they do. But I'd be interested to see it. But again, I'm pretty happy with, we got everybody in there and they're all doing what they need to do and what they want to be doing. And I wouldn't go looking to tweak the wheel too much because I think if we have a normal year, you're going to see a positive number for that, and we should be very ecstatic about that. And let the programs blossom and not try to turn them too much. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Awesome. So to answer your great question, Kelly. I think we're just trying to come up with ideas. It's not to say that that's something that's set in stone that we would change fees. It's just something to toss out there. Maybe we need to revisit and look at it. Maybe we look at it and say, that's not going to work, or there's no need in raising or looking at fees. Or maybe we look at something new and innovative for companies to maybe grab some type of membership, or maybe it's just something looking at it differently with a different program, but not necessarily saying we would raise fees.
Okay,
Garcia,
go ahead.
thank you for the presentation. It's very much appreciated. There was a lot of information in there, and there was a lot of work getting it together. So thank you so much. I was going to say something similar to Lee, just not quite as passionately, but I did have the same sentiment throughout the presentation, which was, man, I'm surprised it didn't drop more. These numbers look pretty good. That was my feeling throughout. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware that Lee, who has a lot more knowledge in these areas than I do for sure, someone like me also felt the same way without the integral or without the history and all, as much as you know. So congratulations, getting through a tough year, and it's not over. So keep up the good work. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
And then real quick, Elias and Melissa, I realize you're new to aquatics and new to recreation to a large extent. I'm curious what your opinions of the numbers are. I hope I'd be real curious and make sure that we're not off base of what you're thinking.
No, I really expected numbers to be worse, to be honest with you. So I'm really flattered to see that the numbers are as good as they are. So I share your sentiments and Dave's. So I think this is good news, and I think with pandemic getting behind us, I hope very soon. I'm looking forward to even happier days.
Let me also say, Lee, that I'm still acutely aware that is the goal, and that still should be, Kelly's question about the fees. That should be an ongoing thing that we look at, as a regular function of the department, right? To make sure that we're keeping up with the economy, keeping up with inflation, being competitive with our city. So raise or lower, it's just kind of something that should be on all the time. And I agree, we don't want to try to, run these clubs out of business by raising fees. But we also do understand that the city council, anyway, when this started, was pretty serious about the goal of breaking even. And so that still is the goal, I believe. Correct, Arcia?
I'd like to add one more thing, if you don't mind. Ever since I got here, a few weeks after I got here, I received a few emails, and I look into it. It appeared, and I did some investigation when this aquatic center was built. I believe during the construction there were some changes that were made to the design. Namely speaking, the stairway was revised. It added the volume of the water to the pool. But what did not happen, the size of the heater that was installed was not double checked. In other words, now we have a facility which during the construction, we increased the volume of water, but we did not really increase the size of the heater properly. Or at least that was what I found out. So going forward, there may be a need to put a new heater into this smaller swimming pool, not the big one. The big one, the athletic people, they don't feel the temperature that much. But I'm referring to the smaller pool where we have a lot of senior citizens and people that are not athletic, they're not very young, and they feel the temperature. So the smaller pool does not have a tendency. We cannot really bring up the temperature to the desired temperature if we have a cold inclement weather under cold weather inclement weather conditions. So there are going to be some challenges and some costs that we may have to deal with. So when we look at this fee, this is a good thing. Like Dave said, this needs to be ongoing thing, because as we go forward and we have to adjust and make things to be as close to perfect as we want them to be, then we also have to look at the fees and that kind of thing. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, and we may have to add up to the capacity of the heater. Unfortunately, the heater may have to be upgraded. So not too many people are going to buy a secondhand heater, even though the heater that heats up a smaller pool is relatively new. But buying a new one, a larger one to replace with it, it would not be very cheap. Just wanted to keep that in. I wanted to let you know about this. So if you would please note that. And thank you so much for your time.
Go ahead, Melissa.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to respond to Lee. Thank you for the opportunity to share, my feelings about performance the last couple of years. I also want to just commend staff for the incredible job they've done managing the Aquatic Center in 2019, but especially in 2020. They've had so many challenges and have just responded over and over and over by keeping the facility open, keeping people safe, and doing everything they can with the shifting protocols to provide the recreational activities. I did want to clarify though, Lee, about the numbers. I think you may have been looking at the projected numbers when you mentioned the 95,000. It's actually slide 8 that shows the actual numbers. And so for 2018, 2019, it was 234,540 in the whole, and that is only a difference of 40,000 compared to what was projected. But for 1920, it was 344,825 in the whole, and that was about $250,000 more than that $95,000 projection. Still incredible in my mind. They're significant numbers, but we kept it open. And the difference was we kept our cost below the projections in terms, as Aristide said, in terms of staffing, in terms of operations. Where we didn't meet expectations was in those revenues. And of course, that's because of COVID. But when you look back, there's also some opportunities in their projections in terms of swim classes and other expansions in programming, where when Plunge opens, we may be able, and the way that the pools are scheduled, there may be some opportunities to expand programming and increase revenue, and that's going to impact those numbers. And that's where, related to the fees, we want to look at everything in a cohesive way and just make sure we've got a good plan for scheduling and the fees are appropriate at all of the different programming levels. I did notice Kelly clarified in the chat that she was saying not questioning the idea of raising them, but actually was questioning why they would be lowered. And I don't think that is what anyone is looking at at this point. It's just, are they the right fee? Is there the right programming? Is it the right fees? And how do we get closer to breaking even? Because $350,000 a year loss would be hard to sustain moving forward. So what can we do to improve performance overall? So I hope that's helpful. Arcia, I think you had a question to answer also, perhaps from Dave, but I don't know if we've covered that related to the break even question.
Dave, go fast.
No, that's okay. I was curious to know if it were minus 250, we'd still want to try to make, we're trying to get closer to even no matter what. I get that. But is it still kind of the directive / expectation by the council that you get there? Or is there an acceptable amount of loss just because it's a service? I don't know where that is strategically, or if this is the appropriate place even to discuss it.
I think moving forward, that needs to be a question that's posed again, because I think initially we were supposed to, that was the goal, is to break even. But I think as decisions were made, there may be another goal now to maybe just serve the community and provide for the community. Maybe that's the goal now. I'm really not sure. So when we go in front of council, that should be a question that's actually asked moving forward. So we can set the right goals moving forward and make sure we're making the right decisions.
And realistic goals.
Yes.
I have to reiterate that. And again, I've been in the financial discussions when literally we didn't know what aquatics cost us. Literally, Stu Isaac had to come in and tell us what we were paying for aquatics. And it was a great deal of money. One of the biggest breakthroughs, and Ericia hit on it, and it's one of the biggest things we can do for our aquatics programs, is to get our own lifeguards, train our own people. It means that we've had successful programs where kids are coming up through our programs and wanting to be a part of it. And it's going to take 3 to 5 years before we build a solid enough program and aquatics background in our community to see to it that young kids are just expected to come in and swim, not whether, we may or we may not. And that's where we're still at a lot of this. And on top of this, with the financial numbers, is that our clubs were literally at 50% for the last couple of, 2 months now? And we're still seeing positive numbers. Again, I don't want to be too happy, Melissa. I get it. I know that they're going to put there's a reason why we are in finance at the golf course. There's a reason why we are in finance on a lot of things. I listened to some budget stuff last night. We are doing very well in aquatics. It is a long-term project. Let's not try to, short circuit ourselves by charging a couple dollars now and sacrificing what we're trying to build in the next 3 to 5 years. And I hate to say it, but COVID financially didn't hurt us that much. But the aquatics programs are suffering, and their numbers went down because they physically couldn't put people in that water. People that I know wanted to join teams couldn't because there was no room left on these teams because there's no water available to bring new people in our community or any others. So let's take a deep breath and understand that we're making great strides, and it's a long-term project, not a short window, especially during COVID. So
Thank you, Lee.
Lee, I don't disagree with anything you say, and I hope I wasn't suggesting that we raise fees.
No.
Yeah, no, totally. I love your passion.
Okay.
Awesome, man.
Okay, I'm not seeing any others. Thank you, Ericia, and thank you, staff, for a great report.
Thanks, Linnea. Thanks, Joe, if you guys are watching.
Okay, we're going to move to public communications related to commission business only, and that is within the subject matter under the jurisdiction of the commission. 5 minutes per person, 30 minutes total. This will be the time for William and Dottie Allison to speak if they wish to. And there's, I see her.
That's good. Okay. You want us to speak now?
Yes, please.
Good evening. We had Mr. Sassoon come out this afternoon and look at our tree, and I think he understands our feelings about trying to save the tree. And we just wanted to make a few notes that we feel the tree is safe and undiseased, and we do enjoy the tree for shading of the house and shading of the street.
We did have an arborist.
And we have had it trimmed by arbor. We have had arborists trim the tree twice and keep it within tow. We like it well groomed. And we feel it does serve us well by cleaning the air, because there's a lot of pollution in El Segundo, from a lot of the industries, even, we've noticed over the years, but we do love the tree, and we feel it's safe and not diseased. But Mr. Sassoon did come up with the idea to have West Coast arborists come and do he can tell you further, but on a review of the tree, and I think that is a very good idea to make sure it is safe and in good shape. So we just like the tree a lot. We'd like to save it. And it has served us well for this. We are facing, with this drought, and we face the south. So we take a lot of sun on our house and our big bay windows we have. So we really enjoy the tree. It blocks a lot of the sun in the afternoon and serves us well. So
Yeah.
you have anything to add, Hezra?
Yes, one thing that I would add to it is that from my standpoint, I have seen some growth of a mushroom or two, like on the bottom of the trunk, but right now it's not. It hasn't had any since the arborist did the work on the tree. They pretty well cleaned it up and took care of any kind of stuff that would cause that to happen.
Yeah.
The displacement has subsided because we are watering the tree deeper. Around its trunk, watering it deeper. Plus, 2 or 3 of the limbs that were very long, sticking out far beyond the tree trunk, have been cut way back to make it more cropped and make it a little more compact. And that prevents a lot of that extra weight and debris from being further out away from the tree itself, so that it can be picked up by our
cleaning people.
Gardener.
One other thing I want to mention that I mentioned to Mr. Sassoon is that we have, over the years that we have lived in this house and remodeled it, 40 some years, we have seen young people driving faster and faster on Mariposa since the street narrows on our side, and that the teenagers would come drunk after many high school games, and they would one hit our car parked in front of our house across the street, and we've had other teenagers, I would say at least 5 or 6 over the years, would smash into the trees instead of the houses on Mariposa. So it is a concern. We take a lot of traffic, and we feel that the tree is part of a protection of our property. So we just wanted to mention that. And so Mr. Sassoon can fill you in more of what we discussed. And I think he's got some good ideas on having a proper review on the tree for its health.
By an arborist.
By an arborist. So thank you for listening to us.
Dottie, thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Allison, thank you very much for speaking tonight. And if I don't see anyone else for public communications, we'll close public communications and move to the consent calendar. Approval of the minutes of the Recreation and Parks Commission special meeting of January 20th, 2021.
I move to approve the minutes.
Can I have a second, please? I'll second it, and then we'll do a voice. Monse will do a voice vote.
Commissioner Kelly Watson,
Yes.
Commissioner Julie Stolnak,
Yes.
Commissioner Dave Love,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Lee Davis,
Yes.
Chairperson Bob Moda.
Yes.
So
That's 5-0.
5-0.
Okay, there's no unfinished business, and we'll move right into new business. Consideration and possible action regarding tree removal at 309 East Mariposa Avenue. There's 2 recommendations. Approve the ficus tree removal at 309 East Mariposa Avenue, or 2, alternatively discuss and take other action related to this item. Christopher and Elias will both be speaking, I believe, on this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, Commission. I'd like to give you a little background on the tree itself. It's been on the city's radar for a while for removal. And the reason why it's come up just recently is due to the engineering department's concrete walk and street repairs that they do on a yearly basis. And it was brought to us by the engineering department as one of their areas that required some remedial work. Melissa, if you could share the screen, I think pictures are worth 1,000 words. Okay, here you have a view of the tree itself. You can see that there are overhead utility lines, telecommunications, power lines going over the top of the tree. The tree has basically been topped. This is a very large ficus tree. And the type of growth that you get when you do this kind of stub pruning is called water sprouts. And a tree of this size needs more foliage and structure than we are getting here. And that is one of the reasons why I believe the decline of this tree has been accelerated. And that can be seen in the next slide. Right here, we have fungus growing on the roots, and there are several locations. This is just on one side. It's kind of those dark brownish areas. Sometimes they're a little more orange and so forth. So that is decay. That is internal decay in the structural roots of this tree. The next slide that you see just below it is showing the roots that are pushing out the curb. To the left of the tree trunk there are concrete sidewalk panels that have been lifted. They've had asphalt ramping repairs and so forth. So here we have an opportunity to remove this tree, rework the sidewalk to ADA compliance, fix the street curb as well. And, you know, I realize trees are very emotional. My staff and I, we are passionate about trees, but we're also very passionate about public safety. Now, is this tree going to fall down tomorrow? Most likely not. And the concrete project isn't slated, I believe, until late summer or fall. But we feel at this time, it's time for this tree to go. And we'd be happy to work with the residents. I'm planting a new tree that they can watch and so forth. We do have a tree pallet that is for trees underneath utility lines. Unfortunately, this was a case of a wrong tree, wrong place. And this is the kind of problems that we run into. And this isn't the first time we've had a situation like this. But we feel like this is the time to take care of this issue. I'll take any questions.
Christopher, Lee Davis, how many of the ficus trees approximately, I know you don't have a solid number, have we taken out of El Segundo because of this very same problem?
Well, I know Main Street and I believe Richmond Street were lined with ficus trees a number of years ago. Those were all removed. I don't have an exact number. We still have a few of these trees in the residential neighborhoods where there are utility lines. We have trees that look like Mickey Mouse ears because they've been, the whole center of it's been pruned out to allow the passing of the utility lines. But this particular tree is you know, is really being cut back hard, and it's a slow death, if you will, on this type of tree. That type of pruning is not up to ISA standards, and but we've been slowly taking out ones that are in this situation. And it's unfortunate, and I understand the passion they have for the tree. I totally understand that.
And kind of a follow-up question, Christopher, what are your titles again, as far as what you hold?
I'm a certified arborist. I'm also a landscape architect. And Santos Haro, which is our tree supervisor, he is a certified arborist as well. And West Coast Arborists, they actually brought this to our attention here when they were trimming our streets here several months ago. And we already knew about it. They said, well, you've got some fungus growing on the roots there. And we told them, yes, we know. And and they're also trained arborists as well. It's something that we see that, somebody may not see that. And we can't see inside the tree, but this is a sign that there is some issues going on.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. I went out and looked at it today, and I kind of saw what you saw, but I'm no arborist, and I thought you held the title of arborist, so I appreciate your input. Thank you.
All right.
I had a couple
hang on,
things too.
Julie, first. Julie,
Okay.
hang on for a second, please. Elias, did you have something that you wanted to bring up, please?
Yes, I like to add a few things if you don't mind. I met the Dotties this afternoon, and I can see their passion for the tree. So we've been told by West Coast arborists about the issues that this tree has, the decay and the fungus, but we don't have anything submitted to us in writing. And what I did tell the property owner next door, next to the tree, that we could pursue a report in writing from West Coast arborists, whom I have a lot of respect for. Not that I don't have respect for Chris, don't get me wrong, but it's always good to also have an official, report from an arborist other than city staff to make sure that we've been fair about this. I'm not an arborist, but from what I saw, it really didn't look good. And I share my thoughts with the Dotties. But if it is the pleasure of the commission tonight, I've requested Chris to pursue and obtain a formal report from the West Coast arborist with the recommendation that we could have. And that's what we intend to do. But it is up to the commission if they want to decide about the fate of the tree tonight. So I leave it up to the commission, but I recommend that we wait till we get the report in writing from the West Coast arborist and look at it and share that report with the owners. Well, let's not rush this. I believe Dotties, once they see the issues with the tree from the arborist, I think they're very fair, and they will understand that.
All right. Thank you. Julie, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I knew that Elias had something to say.
Yeah, no problem. I'm always one that, wants to save trees, and I always bring up trees at the commission meetings with the trimming and replanting and all of that. And I know where this tree is, and drive by it and walked by it a few nights ago with my dog. And I know that every tree has a life. And a lot of our trees in town are very old trees, and they do develop diseases. And a few weeks ago, I believe it was maybe in Glendale, where that city tree came down in the high winds that was in front of that house. And the residents all around there were saying, that the city knew that this tree had problems, that this tree had disease, and that it should have come out a few years ago, and it did not come out. And thankfully it didn't, kill anybody or do anything when it came down. It did cause property damage, but when I watched that video on the news, I was like, geez, it happens. And here the city knew about it and didn't take the necessary measures to remove that tree. But I agree that I think that we ought to get a written report from the West Coast arborists and see what they have to say about it, and go from there.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Dave,
May I?
please. Yes, please.
So I'm okay waiting for a third party to come along and give a report. I don't know if it's a good precedent. We get protests from residents, maybe 1 or 2 a year on trees on average. And I don't know if we're gonna be wanting to do this on each of those as well, and this would become the standard. So I mean, I'm okay doing it, but I don't like setting a precedent that our own arborist opinion isn't sufficient. But I understand in this circumstance, there's a lot of passion behind it, and I do feel for the residents as well. We all love our trees in front of our houses, and it's hard to see them go, but like Julie said, they do have a lifespan. My other concern is that it's not just the health of the tree that we're worried about here. We're talking about the safety of the sidewalk. It's starting to come up, and there's liability there. There's also liability as that curb is getting pushed out into the street. If a car goes by and hits that gets pushed out another 6 inches or so, it's dangerous for a car driving by potentially as well. So even if the tree is found to be perfectly healthy, wouldn't staff still recommend taking it out for those other reasons? And if that's the case, I mean, why are we doing it? But if that's not the case, then I support going ahead and getting it. But I feel like it's a pretty bad one on a block that gets a lot of traffic and a lot of sidewalk traffic as well, and skateboarders and bikes and everything else. So I guess I'd like to know what Chris has to say about Elias, because I'm not sure what staff recommendation is at this point, or if there is a solidified recommendation. But those were my thoughts on the topic.
Dave, all good points, all of them. Christopher, as Dave, I said, I want to know, is a month gonna, and another a report by be like a colleague of yours, or is that going to change anything?
I don't believe so. We did a report here for another couple. It's probably been a year, maybe even a year and a half or so ago. Again, they're very passionate about their tree and so forth. I said, okay, it had the same kind of issue. It had the fungus growing on it. And we said, okay, let's do a report. This is back with Meredith. We had a discussion. And we had West Coast Arborists do the report. I presented it to the residents, and they almost threw it back in my face saying, well, that's not an independent arborist. They're on your payroll. So why I do welcome doing the report, that is something that we may hear.
Well, when I did talk to Dottie's, as I said earlier, and they are here, they could speak up if they want. No, the understanding is that they would respect the report as would be submitted by the West Coast Arborist. And I've been in these situations before. You don't run into very many cases like this, Dave. This is a case where the resident's been there almost 40 years. They spoke at the city council meeting last night. I don't know if you guys knew or not. They feel very passionate. I don't really think the report would change anything, but in my humble opinion, this is not going to cost a lot of money nor a long time. I think it would be wise to wait till we get the report, and that way there won't be any questions. And Dottie's, they did tell me they would respect the recommendation of the report.
Okay, Elias, I still say, if the recommendation of the report is the tree is healthy, would the city still be okay with the curb and the sidewalk remaining as they are?
my response is let's wait and see what the report says, and we cross that bridge when we get to it.
Fair enough.
All right. Okay. Commission, what do you think? Do I have a motion? Well, I'm not seeing anybody say anything, so I'm gonna make the motion since it looks like everybody's biting their tongue, that we hold this over until next meeting and no longer than next meeting until there's till we get a report or till city gets a report from West Coast Arborists about the tree. Just because Elias has told them that he would do that, and I'll go behind that. But I'm not sure that it would change my mind whether we get the report that it's that it's healthy or not, because it is the hardscape damage is tremendous there. So that's my motion, that we hold it over until next meeting. Is there a second?
So your motion includes doing the report, right, Bob?
Yes, I'm sorry. It is hold it over until we get the report. Yes.
I'll second that.
Voice vote, please. Monse?
Commissioner Kelly Watson,
Agree.
Commissioner Julie Stolnick,
Agree.
Commissioner Dave Lubbs,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Lee Davis,
Yes.
Chairperson Bob Moda.
Yes, please. So
That's 5-0.
5-0, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll make sure that we do have that report for next meeting, correct?
Yes, we'll
Yes.
make sure of that.
Okay, thank you. And Christopher, I'm going to tell you, I agree with you 100%. So we'll play this one out and see what happens.
Sure.
Let me also go on record and tell everybody that I trust fully what Chris is saying. I fully agree with everything that was discussed. But in my humble opinion, it is just makes it maybe a little more transparent to do what appears to be fair.
Elias, you gave your word to a resident, and Bob wants to support that, and I respect that.
Thank you.
That's why. Thank you, everyone, and Christopher and Santos. I appreciate their hard work on this also. We're going to move to reports, and the first one is Aquatic Subcommittee. Who's going to take that one?
You want me to take that, Kelly?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, we've met, I think, twice since our last meeting. We had one that included Minton and also the Aquatic Design Group. And we got some really interesting drawings that were absolutely phenomenal at some of the things they're trying to do involving the acoustics, the lighting, how to arrange the pumps and the pools. And they kind of went on a little different venture, which is, in a nutshell, basically just having the women's restroom being all gender. And there was some concern that might not be enough restrooms. And so that in our last meeting, which was this morning or this afternoon at 2 o'clock, we're having them kind of drop some more ideas where we can perhaps see restrooms that are going to, make code and get everything in there. And it's for me, it's, I mean, you saw how excited I was today about the pool. I think it's this is perhaps going a little bit slow, but I think we're covering a lot of ground and covering all options, and we're getting to see some really good things for that pool and to help bring more programming into that pool, including more space to do stretching and meetings and stuff like that. So it's been real positive. I'm not going to say it's been real quick, but Minton is covering all their bases and really listening to everything that's being said and presenting great ideas. So with that being said, that's kind of where we're at with the plunge design. Is there any questions from the group? Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Gateway Committee. Anything going on with that?
Not recently, but since we met the last time, we have had another lengthy meeting. And what has transpired is we didn't really seem to be coming to an agreement on things with the designers and also within the committee. And we seem to be fracturing and going off in many different directions and what people wanted and what the designers were giving. And we just didn't seem to be getting anywhere after, I think, almost 2 years' time or a year and a half. And so what has happened now is city manager suggested that he and staff work on a plan and a design and go from there. And it was getting to be very discouraging with the committee. And I had brought up also that it has to be very discouraging for the designers because we just seem to be working in opposite directions. And so that's what it was left at. And city manager is going to be getting together with staff and working on some designs, and we'll see where things come about from that. So that's where we are.
Oh, okay. Anybody have anything? Christopher, did you have anything you wanted to say on that?
No, that sums it up pretty well.
Excellent.
Elias may have a word or two he'd like to add.
Right. Well, one thing I'd like to add, Julie, thanks for your comments. I do not believe that the city manager meant that the city staff and him will work on the design by ourselves. In other words, this would not be able to be done by in-house forces, in-house personnel. We just do not have the artists in the staff to make any changes to the design. So I just want to make that known to everyone, that the city manager did agree to spearhead the efforts to revise the plan, but not utilizing the city staff. We just don't have any artists and to do that. So I just want to make that point.
So is the city manager taking an active role in the committee that currently exists, or is the committee changing? Now I am confused.
The city manager volunteered to spearhead the revisions that might be needed to smooth out the design, so it'll be more representative of the city of El Segundo being a beach city, the things that we want, which is more inviting and so forth. So there was some discussion going back and forth where the most up-to-date design was not very, according to the discussions and comments, it wasn't inviting. It wasn't representing the city of El Segundo as an inviting community, as a beach city, if that makes sense. So the city manager took it on his own to volunteer to spearhead the efforts of working with the designer to make the design that they had come up with, to get rid of the rough edges, make it smoother, make it nicer, make it more presentable. And that's what happened.
Well, I think a lot of those things are opinions, and it sounds like there were varied opinions on the committee. Is it safe to say that because it's a fractured committee, he is going to take over the redesign of it? I'm still not totally getting it. I'm so sorry.
Hang on a second. I think Melissa's got something to say.
I was going to say, I'm just going to add to that. So the way that the end of that last committee meeting, he did make a commitment to work with staff and the designers to try to come up with a compromised design. And the second part of that plan is to return to the committee to share those revisions prior to going to council with the recommendation. So that's the step. It is, not going to be a quick process, but that was the understanding. And Julie, was that your understanding also at the end of that meeting?
Yeah, I think so. It's not so that the committee was fractured. It was just, the designers had come up with a destination place. We were like, this is not going to be a destination place. The design that they had seemed to us to fit more of east of Pacific Coast Highway than west of PCH coming into our community. It didn't seem like a warm or inviting design. So it just seemed like, and I brought up that it has to be very discouraging for the designers, because we would say, okay, we're wanting this, and then they would come up with something, and then we're like, no, we want to go this way. And it was just a constant, it seemed like a constant struggle that we weren't meshing with our ideas, and things kept changing. So that's when the city manager kind of stepped in and said that he has some experience with this. We were also wanting it to be able to be kind of replicated, or pieces of the design be taken out and used at all of the entrances, so that everything is cohesive, instead of, every entrance we have something different. So he said that from various cities that he has worked in, he has some background and has some experience with this. And he was happy to take that on and see what they could come up with, and then come back to the committee to, take another look at it.
That did I answer it, Dave? Okay. Anybody else? Thank you. Transportation subcommittee's on hold.
No, it's not.
It's not. Okay.
No, we're coming back.
All right.
Let me give a quick update. So
Please.
we've now brought Melissa up to speed on everything that we had worked on pre-COVID, and that knowing that things are opening up, and that, we still have seniors that are using Dial-A-Ride, and we still have our transportation assets and the future of them, and what we want to do with that. We are planning to meet as a committee in the next month and get everything resurrected. So Melissa's met with staff, and now we're going to pull the committee back together and see where we are and where we need to go.
Thank you. Youth Sports Council.
Has not met, but Bob, I wouldn't mind hearing what you know about an update on youth sports.
Okay, we did meet just before the last beginning of February, and everybody's trying to get together. Youth sports leagues are trying to get it figured out, turning in their return to play protocols, and we always get a list at the beginning of each of our seasons of what we need to turn in to the city, whether it be insurance, roster, schedules. This year it's waivers, not and return to play protocols. We were told at the meeting, and I was there for Babe Ruth, and that the per player fee was not going to be charged this year, and that's what we all heard. All the presidents, regional commissioners, and then in the last 2 weeks, we all got an email and said the per player fee is back on. And to me, if we heard it from a staff member, it had to come from somewhere. Now, Recreation and Parks Commission can't waive fees. Staff members can't waive fees. The only one that can waive fees is the council. So I assumed that if that fee was waived, it came from council. These youth sports leagues went through a lot, just like everyone else during this pandemic. In 20, a lot of us had to, we still had cost even though we weren't operating. So to some of the leagues, it's not a lot of money. To a couple of leagues, it's a lot of money. So I have a problem. I'm looking for all the leagues, not just Babe Ruth. I'm looking AYSO. That's a huge check that AYSO has to give to the city for per player fee. Yes, they collect on it. I don't know that I don't know how they run their league. If they took it off of their registration costs because they were told, I don't know that. But any little bit helps these youth leagues. They're all nonprofits, so, or not for profit. So if staff can't waive the fees, Recreation and Parks Commission can't waive the fees, then I think we should have staff take that to council and see if the fee, the per player fee for this year could be waived or reduced. Because we were already told it was going to be not required this year. So that's my report. I know we can't vote on anything. That's my report. And with that, we'll go to staff reports. Aracia, Recreation Superintendent.
Yes, I don't have anything new. You have my report in front of you. I would, though, like to focus on something because he hasn't really had his time in the sun. Joseph Lormans was hired as our aquatics coordinator. We're so glad to have him. He was like born and raised at the pool, so it's really nice to have someone with such a history with aquatics working for us. I really like having him. He is a great guy. So congratulations, Joe, if you're watching. Right now, just like Bob said, we're looking at protocols. I am reading them one by one, and it's so exciting. And then also we're trying to expand some of the programs that we already have with having, now we have 2 people in the lane swimming. We possibly will have some skateboard camps and hopefully some pod spring camps. So we're looking at trying to expand what we have so we can offer more to the community. So exciting, but still walking that fine line. And that's all I have this evening.
Okay, anybody have anything for Aracia? Just throw a hand up or something. Okay, Dave. I'm sorry, Lee, my mistake. I was looking at Dave.
Yeah, Aracia. If I'm not mistaken, Joseph is the guard on deck who's actually our lifeguard instructor as well. Is that not correct?
Yes, he's our lifeguard instructor. He's also, he has WSI. He is.
He's actually not only WSI, but he's WSI instructor, correct?
Yes, that will be next.
And these are all huge points in aquatics. Yeah, very huge points in aquatics. He's a very strategic member of that team that is accomplishing a lot of the goals that we were talking about earlier tonight. And I just congratulate him. I'm very happy to see that he's up in that position. And I'm sure Linnea, I know she's in here, appreciates everything he does as well. So good hiring, good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to tie the last 2 things that were said together. What you just said, Bob, about the per player fees, and what I heard earlier from Aracia's report on the aquatics was that we gave the aquatics user groups a discount because of the reduced capacity and the reduced ability to use our facilities. So I'm not sure how that decision got made. Was that something that was council, and why wouldn't the process be consistent for all user groups of all facilities in how decisions are made about fees? I guess I'm just confused.
Do you want to respond, Aracia, or would you like me to?
Go ahead, Melissa.
So May I start with responding to Bob's comments about the Youth Sports Council, and then I'll address the aquatic center fees as well. And I did want to begin just with an apology for the miscommunication. We do very much value our relationships with all of the youth sports organizations that are part of the Youth Sports Council, and have just really appreciated the partnership the past year during an incredibly challenging time. So together, we definitely made adjustments when the public health restrictions related to COVID changed. And sometimes they changed repeatedly within a few days with the goal of encouraging as much physical activity for youth as possible under the guidelines. And as Bob mentioned, both the city and the leagues have both needed to respond to significant revenue loss and other impacts this past year. I did check with both Meredith and Aricia about this issue, and both explained that last year's fees for the youth sports organizations were not collected, as access to the fields was severely restricted and the teams were limited to only conditioning and drills. And that's a similar case on the aquatic side. So the fees weren't charged for services that weren't provided because they were limited to only a certain number of swimmers per lane. And for instance, water polo, it was just swimming for a lot of that. So it wasn't quite the same agreements that the full rates would have applied to. But both Meredith and Aricia said that the fees were meant to be reinstated when the leagues returned to play and the teams were able to scrimmage and compete again. So when LA County's protocols and guidelines changed last month, and that was now allowed, that's why the fees were reinstated for the spring season, because the teams would be able to compete and use the fields for all of those hours. But again, I do want to apologize on the department's behalf that the strategy was not clearly articulated to the Youth Sports Council. That communication could have been better throughout the past year related to this fees. And then, as Bob also mentioned, community services would not be able to not apply an adopted fee for services that are provided. So that request would need to go to City Council. What I recommend respectfully, Bob, is that a member of the Youth Sports Council, so one of the presidents of those leagues, could reach out to City Council and make that request. And the council could decide to put that item on the agenda for consideration by the full council at a future City Council meeting. That would be the only way to address it, appropriately, taking into consideration all of these factors. So I hope that's helpful. Did that answer your question, Kelly? The aquatics fees, that was something that was implemented when the aquatic center opened in July, but they are back to 100% now because, again, of the change in the LA County protocols.
Yeah, I just want to clarify about what fees have been reduced. Like you said that 2020 fees were not collected, but I think the way the seasons work, you're collected for the year. So is that, Bob, impacting some seasons where some season got charged and some season didn't, but they got the same amount, or is it truly aligning with the service that was not delivered?
It's not going backwards, if that's what they're not going backwards for fees. It's if it's a spring season, I'm going to assume that you're getting charged for the spring season.
You're charged at your primary season.
Primary season.
That's the thing. Yeah. So does that mean that baseball and softball are going to get charged, but soccer won't because it's not their prime season, is the question?
They will be charged during the primary season.
So they'll get charged for the ball as usual. Yeah. Okay.
Dave,
Bob,
go ahead.
Bob, did you say the Sports Council met at the beginning of February?
I believe it was beginning of February.
Oh, I didn't get invited to that. How sad.
Well, you better.
Sorry, I missed it.
Yeah.
I'll let Sean know.
There you go. Okay. So seeing nothing else for Aricia. Thank you, Aricia. And we'll go to Christopher Hansen, Parks Maintenance Superintendent.
Okay, you have my report there. I've got a few updates. We are very welcoming the recent rains that we've had. It's been a dry winter. Hopefully we'll get some more rain. We also received our 2020 Tree City USA designation. we've been at it 19 years now. So that's good to have. And then also the Parks Division website has been updated on the city website. Ever since the merger, we've kind of been split with recreation, and we just updated the Parks Division, which includes a lot of good information on trees and frequently asked questions, tree palettes, all types of good information. We're still fine tuning it. We're looking at adding some pictures to give it some dynamics as well. But there's a lot of good information there now on the Parks Division on the city website. And I'll take any questions.
Anyone?
I had a couple of questions regarding the golf course, and then also some trees at Library Park, Christopher. So first I'll start with the trees at Library Park. I noticed, I don't know, I guess a week or so ago, when I was driving down home, there was some police tape, looked like it was cordoning off some camphor trees that were there that I think were in question a few years ago. And the sisters that live across the street in the nice apartment building were fighting on having those taken out. And I was just wondering if those trees were back on slate to be removed again, because it was taped off.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know why they were taped off, but there's been no discussion about removing them.
Okay, all right, good. And then the other thing was on the golf course, with all that construction going on there, and right at the very beginning, I was disappointed to see so many giant trees taken out that were around the clubhouse, like the giant eucalyptus trees that sat up there at the first hole. Those things just chopped down. And I wonder if the city council knew that those trees were coming down. I mean, I don't know why that the clubhouse or the new building couldn't have been worked around that. You know, I sure hope that there are going to be a lot of trees put back on this course, but I was really saddened to see those giant eucalyptus trees come down the way that they did. And I know, like, when, you know, in the community, when you're going to be doing construction on your home and you want to take out a tree on your property, you know, the city has a fit about it. And here, so many of these trees were felled on the golf course. So I just wanted to ask about that. And also, are there still going to be water sources on the golf course? Are the lakes still going to remain on the course? Do you know?
I do not know, and I also do not know about the tree removals as well. I really wasn't informed about that. So
if I could chime in, Lee Davis. Last night, the city council had a presentation on the Top Golf Course. As you know, I think everyone knows the golf course committee was disbanded about a month and a half ago in the ballpark. Last night, they came up with a redesigned golf course for the lakes. It is going to incorporate the two lakes that currently exist. It obviously took out the pond that's in front of the clubhouse. It's a pretty dramatically, I won't say pretty dramatic, but there's some definite redos. They took out the par 4 going up the hill, and they put it as the first hole. And I think that was to reclaim some short play area for practice. And you can actually, if you look at the meeting last night, move your way to about an hour and a half into it, and you can see the redesign. And they've actually moved the hole 8 back behind the Top Golf nets, which is kind of an interesting play where you have to play behind the nets and walk right back into the tee box to get to the next tee box. There's some points of concern. And with that being said, they're spending extra $800,000 on the course. They're redoing all the grass. They're redoing all the irrigation. They're redoing all the sand traps. They're doing a lot of great things. It's, in my opinion, it's about 80% absolutely fantastic, but there's some points of concern as well. And to go back here, there are 2 lakes still left. The 2 primary lakes are on the course, and they have put them more in play, if that makes any sense to you.
Hey, Lee, are the lights still on there?
They spent roughly about 45 seconds on the redesigned golf course in the meeting, and it did not show barriers to that par 4 that runs parallel to PCH, which I think is something they're going to have to work on, as well as the barriers to protect you from walking back on 8. It kind of left a lot of questions up there, which I'm still debating whether I'm going to really pursue, knowing that the project's, in construction, literally. So,
But are there still lights on the course? Are there still night golf?
There was no mention of it, but I believe there is. By contract, I think they have to, unless that part of the contract was amended. And
I've been telling everybody that. So I've been telling everybody that, and I just hope it's still part of the design. Melissa, do you know, are the lights still included?
I'm sorry, I don't know the detail about the lights,
Okay.
but I was going to offer to send out the staff report related to this item from last night. There's a picture of the redesign and some details, although Lee covered it wonderfully. And was going to mention the $800,000 of additional Topgolf investment to do the redesign. But I can send that out after this meeting if you would be interested in seeing it.
Yes, I would.
Absolutely, please.
Okay, Christopher, thank you for the report. Actually, both reports tonight. Thank you. Melissa McCollum, Community Service Director, your report, please.
Thank you. And I just have a few updates to my written report as well. One more update from last night. The City Council did vote last night to extend the license agreements for the Youth Sports Council organization for 1 additional term with the current rates. So 1 year instead of 3 years, which has been the term in the past. And part of the reason for that was the rates haven't been raised since 2014. So there was an internal request to consider the fees as part of an upcoming master fee study to determine the appropriate rates for subsequent years. So recommended changes would be considered by City Council at a future date. They also requested during that item that staff review the athletic field and facility use and allocation policy, as that policy has not been updated since 2015. So conversations with stakeholders, including the Youth Sports Council and all of you, will take place in the next several months before returning to City Council with an update. So that's the other City Council update from last night. A few additional pieces of information. So at the direction of City Manager, our upcoming needs assessment will focus on Recreation Park. So recommendations regarding the scope of that needs assessment and consultant selection will be made to the City Council at their upcoming meeting on April 20th. We remain extremely excited about this project. The negotiations with the consultants continue, so I can't give you very many details tonight, but I am very optimistic that you will be pleased with the recommendations and the related outcomes. And thank you very much to Dave and to Elias and to Aricia for serving on that RFP review committee, along with Cheryl Ebert, who's one of the engineers in Public Works. Aricia and I also wanted to provide an update about the Trapeze project tonight. The pilot project is actually not able to move forward at this time, as the group was not able to meet the city's requirement for insurance. But Aricia and I did want to thank you again for your openness to the idea and your careful consideration of their proposal, but wanted you to have that information as soon as we had it. And finally, hopefully you saw in the report the invitation to participate in the city's upcoming Book to Action program. It's featuring the book, The Nature Fix, Why Nature Makes Us Happier, Healthier, and More Creative. So the book definitely combines 2 of my favorite things, nature and books and reading. But it also, more importantly, uses research from around the world to illustrate the health benefits of being outside. So senior librarian Julie Todd has planned a series of related events, including a socially distanced litter cleanup, a family art workshop using litter and household recyclables, and a virtual book discussion with the Nature Fix author, Florence Williams. So all community members, but I encourage all of you as well, may pick up a free copy of the Nature Fix via the library to go, just by calling the library or just let me know, and we will arrange that for you. So thank you very much for your time, and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Looking around, I'm seeing none. Thank you very much. And thanks for filling in when we needed all those answers. So I appreciate that. Commissioner comments, Commissioner Watson.
Yes, thank you. First of all, just to welcome Joseph. I think it's great that you recognized him, Aricia, and it's great to have him. And secondly, I was going to highlight the Nature Fix, so I'm glad that Melissa brought that up. But the other event the other author talk that the library is putting on, I'm really excited about sharing as well. And that is the author of Kiss the Ground, which is a documentary. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It is available on Netflix currently, and it's also a book. And Woody Harrelson is also involved in this project. Fabulous project about things that we can do to reverse greenhouse gases, us personally, which is really exciting because, and I meant reverse, not just slow. It's really exciting because it's very empowering. So I think if you're interested, they're going to have the author also doing an author talk, and I think that's a pretty exciting event. So Kiss the Ground is the name of it, and it looks like it's going to be on Earth Day that they're going to be talking about it. So.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Stolnak, Julie.
Yes, so I wanted to welcome Joseph as well. Also, I wanted to thank all the city staff for the great job they've been doing for this past year, and making all the changes and the day-to-day changes that keep going on, and keeping the city running, and the successful programs they've had for the kids at Rec Park and for everybody around. So I just want to thank them for all of their hard work, and keep pressing forward. And then also I wanted to say to Elias that it's nice with the water tower being green. I'm not Irish, but I thought it was nice, all lit up in green for St. Patrick's Day. I saw when Carol Pierstuck put that on Facebook, and I thought that was a nice touch, because everybody thought that those lights were going to be on all the time, and people will comment about it. And so I think when it's just done every once in a while, it makes it more special, and people pay attention to it. So I thought that was a nice touch for St. Patrick's Day. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lubes.
No comments this evening, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chairperson Davis, Lee.
There we go. First of all, I can't say enough good things about Christopher. We had a lot of discussions, but the one that kind of just slipped and I found to be one of the funnier / more prudent ones was acacia trees at Acacia Park. I thought that was probably not genius. It's probably so obvious, but yet it wasn't there, and it just makes complete sense. With that being said, I want to thank staff in aquatics. You heard how the term is passionate and all that. It's excitement in my eyes to see something that we've done and seeing it do well. And I'm just hoping that we don't have people thinking that there's different levels. This is a great jump and a lot of success we've seen in a fairly short amount of time. So just hopefully I can put some perspective in there on that. And with that, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lee. I want to thank staff for everything you've done during the last year and a half of dealing with everything that you've had to deal with, dealing with youth sports groups, pandemic stuff, taking care of yourselves. You guys are the unsung heroes. I know you get paid, it's your job, but it looks like you do it for more than that. So thank you. And with that, we will adjourn to the next regular meeting on Wednesday, April 21st at 6 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Bob, could I make one comment?
Yes, please, go
Yeah.
ahead.
I just want you to know that it's really a delight for me to work with Melissa and your entire staff, Melissa, including Aricia and everybody else. We have a very close coordination amongst us, and it is absolutely a pleasure for me to work with all of them. And thank you so much, Julie, for acknowledgement of the lights. I look after my heritage. No, I'm just kidding. So it looks good. If you go out there tonight, we intend to keep the lights for another night. And thank you so much.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good night.